the office of the mayor. And so we are very pleased to have each one of them to grace our stage at this particular time. We want you to understand that this is a very serious time that we're living in, and we're glad that we have very serious candidates for the position. Thank you very much. First set of concerns has to do with the women's right of choice. And we are going to give you ample time to discuss it. As you know, in the District of Columbia, we have one of the most liberal right to choice legislations, perhaps we think maybe in the whole country. And because of that, of course, of our national attention, and because of the Supreme Court decision, our program is under a serious attack. Most cities have a number of chances, but they are really using our right of sanctuary to pose a serious problem to us in the District of Columbia. Yep. And we as women are particularly charged and particularly concerned about this issue, and to give an opportunity to our women to continue that, despite the fact that we do not have home rule in the District of Columbia. The question is, how do you propose to protect women's right of choice and to give them adequate health care in the District of Columbia? Would you please give us an idea of exactly what you plan to do? And we will start with Candidate Hall. I'd like to welcome you to our stage.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. And I am honored to be on this platform with DC women and the voters who are awesome women. And it's a new Republican in town. And so I truly appreciate the opportunity to tell you what the voters are saying regarding that concern. First, you know, the flaw in the question is, and the voters have said this, they've said, where does it say there's an inherent right to an abortion? And now this is voters from across the lines, Republicans, their voice, independents, and Democrats. Voters say, why am I being forced to pay for someone else's decision? And what about the rights of the unborn child? So the Constitution, it says that all have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so it's flawed. Justice Ginsburg, the late Supreme Court justice, even said that the original decision is flawed. And so me, from my own personal response to that, and knowing that abortion began from Margaret Sanger, she began it as a racist eugenics Negro project. So for me to support abortion, this is also from the voters, that the voters would be agreeing to be an apostle of the Negro Extermination Project. And so that's their concern. As mayor, I would be concerned, are the women being properly educated? Are they being taken through a counseling session before accepting their decision, that yes, I've come to this decision to abort my baby? Do they know of the negative physical and spiritual effects of abortion? All women have a right to choose, and based on a choice of making a choice to have sex or have sex unprotected, and whom they will sleep with. When pregnancy comes into play, they've got to decide on that. What do they do? They got to take responsibility for that pregnancy, all while birth control is free and available. So I know, and it's not unusual to choose adoption. President Clinton, Newt Gingrich, President Ford, even Mayor Anthony Williams, they were adopted. And if they had been lost to abortion, we wouldn't have heard their great voices. So the voters who are on the other side,
it's time,
like
Cynthia.
And have their voice heard.
Thank you very much. All right, Dr. Hamilton, what say you?
Yes, first and foremost, thank you so very much. I'm very honored to Women in Politics, Ms. Shelton and Ms. Martinez. Thank you very much. And for all of the wonderful women that are on the platform, both participating and watching. It is with also the community's input and perspective that I come forward to share that I am a proud proponent of a woman's safety and right to choose. I think it's very important to understand that 53% of abortions in Washington, D.C. were by Black women. And so I think it's very important that we point out that choice is necessary. And as my opponent mentioned, it was the actual Equal Rights Amendment that afforded women and Blacks the freedoms that America's democracy affords for them to choose. As the chief executive of Washington, D.C., I will support the current two bills that are before the council. That will be Bill B-240808, which is the Human Rights Sanctuary Amendment Act of 2020, as well as B-240726, and that is the Enhancing Reproductive Health Protections Amendment Act of 2022. It is in my professional understanding and belief that both of these bills would make DC a safe haven for all who need reproductive freedoms and ensure that citizens also from our LGBTQ community would be able to have what we call gender affirming care. And that's so very important. As my opponent also mentioned, it is important that we educate our general public to understand the realities of the right to choose and a woman's safety. We must identify our opponents in order that we can have comprehensive conversations to treat it fairly. And by fairly, I mean, who are our opponents to this? Our Republican conservatives, no doubt, our traditional Christians, we understand that, and just Republicans in general. But more importantly, when I say be fair, it is important that we understand that just as these groups enjoy the right to choose gun and war, it is important that our women are garnered the right to be able to choose their bodies and the right choice for themselves. Elevating this matter, there is a need for equitable, affordable rights to affordable health care. And it's something that everyone should be entitled to. And that's exactly why I'm running. I would use everything in my power as the chief executive to protect women's rights and to choose comprehensive reproductive health, because that's what the community has communicated they're interested in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Candidate Mayoral Bowser, would you care to answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shelton. And I want to thank the Women in Politics for having me on this evening. I'm Mayoral Bowser, your mayor. I'm running for re-election to continue to represent the best city in the world and bring my 15 years of experience to bear in leading our city in what is really an unprecedented time. It's unprecedented for a lot of reasons, but certainly we, as all women in America, are under attack, and we've been attacked by a partisan Supreme Court. And we are more vulnerable than most. Ms. Shelton mentioned that we have liberal laws as it relates to choice here. But in fact, the laws that our legislators have put in place regarding healthcare in the District of Columbia are challenged and in fact are lessened by the Congress of the United States of America. we're already in the position where the Congress has said we cannot use our locally raised dollars, our own taxes, to support poor women in their reproductive health choices. That was the situation before Dobbs, and it is the situation that we go into should we have a change in leadership in our Congress, or should we have a change in leadership in a couple of years in the White House. So that's why it's so very important. If you ask me, what am I going to do to protect women's health in the district? What we all have to do is make sure that we're voting and we're supporting candidates across the country that are not going to challenge a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. What this is about, yes, it's about choice, but it's also about freedom. It's about liberty, and it's about a woman's right to have bodily autonomy. Certainly, we're not talking about the government telling a man what to do with his body. Why is it okay that the government and very few people, specifically people in the Supreme Court and the few people in the Congress, telling women what to do with their bodies? I think it's very important that we do, in addition to voting, that we do a couple of more things, that we work hand in hand with our Congresswoman. She laid out a strategy when I convened the Congresswoman and the members of the council at Planned Parenthood on the day that this leaked draft before it was an opinion was announced. And her strategy is to make sure that we can block any riders that come our way in the Senate, regardless of what happens in the House. I'm also going to work with an office that I created, our Office of Federal and Regional Affairs, to make sure that we are working with the administration, the president and his team, but we're also working and lobbying every day and throughout the year on the issues that affect the District of Columbia, and making sure that we have that in place. I also—
Mayor Bowser, it's time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, following up, candidates, let's get right down to it. Texas and Arizona sent busloads of persons to the District of Columbia, immigrants from their state, and said, here they are, you sanctuary city. Let's see what you're going to do about this. The Washington Post, in its editorial, said to the city and to our current mayor, while you may not have intentionally created this problem, and perhaps you did when you determined that it was a sanctuary city, but in clear language it says, mayor, and mentioned our mayor by name, that is, and said, you have a responsibility to fix it. There are some residents that have been brought to the attention of DC Women in Politics, have suggested a number of things. They have suggested that maybe we should give some money to the bus drivers and say, take them back. Take them back. Says some people who have come to the attention of DC Women in Politics, who said that, Madam Mayor, we do appreciate the fact that you have a past emergency declaration to allot what I think is somewhere around $10 million to provide for the new office of can't think of the exact title, but that will provide services to them. And some people are saying, Madam Mayor, while we recognize that they have laid this problem on your feet, they are saying to Madam Mayor and to the potential Madam Mayors that we think that you are using funds that we need for our own candidate, our own residents. And so perhaps we need to call on others. We also said to candidates, we know what you are concerned about. But you know that our mayor made a request to the National Guard to come and help. And the National Guard turned our mayor around. And when we say our mayor, we mean turn our city around. We also asked the federal government to assist us with funding. And the federal government turned us down. And so we are in a dilemma. We are in a dilemma as a city. And they are saying to us, what do you think we should do? We have the people. We also, some have said to us, each one, even though the people are governor of Texas and the governor of Arizona, you have said that you're going to penalize us, but we're not the only sanctuary city. Why did you decide to bring them to the District of Columbia, to New York City, and to Chicago, where it just happens to be all African-American males? This is a lot to say. The question which we want you to answer, each candidate, what would you have us to do? Bus them back, not fund it, or do what we have proposed to do? But what we do want you to address is the question of what to do with what almost 10,000 people who have come to our doors. We want to answer. We will begin with the question with Dr. Hamilton.
Yes, we are in some trying times, and this is a very challenging situation. I will represent from a community's perspective that we've been a sanctuary city actually since 2008. So the reality of being prepared for this in 2022, we should have had a migrant administration or administration as a whole. We've had much migration into our beautiful city since the 2008 understanding of us being a sanctuary city. As the chief executive, I would say that I would humanely house them. However, we do have citizens here who are very frustrated with the reality that we have such a problem with our homelessness, such a problem with our veterans, as well as our families that still need help in the subsidies arena. So what we are concerned with, and the reason I'm running, is because we have mismanaged quite a bit of money, and the reality of not being prepared before now for a matter such as this, of course, it feels grave. And of course, we've got to act. First and foremost, I would work with other cities that are dealing with this to make sure that we come together to combat this, because the more people that we receive will mean the less that we will be able to help. But we must get the Department of Justice to enforce or force Texas and Arizona to enforce the border understandings and ICE understandings. So there are several things we need to do. But I do want to point out, as we mentioned, the 10 million, it is important that in the midst of our pandemic, that we found $550 million of a surplus, which meant we only spent, we didn't spend $200 million upwards in that particular setting. And we still had so many folks in the street. So I believe from the community's perspective, what we are most concerned with is that we understand that this migrant problem is something that we're going to have to continue to prepare for and come up with comprehensive solutions. But what we've got to do is we've got to have leadership that is accountable and also transparent to the people, so that the rainy day fund that we failed to put together as a sanctuary city, that we're accountable for this very moment of having to deal with and come up with solutions. And so while we do—
Hi, Dr. Hamilton.
Thank you.
Candidate Bowser.
Thank you, Ms. Shelton, for that question. And I think you know clearly where I stand. The notion that we should be prepared for a hurricane when we get small rains reflects a misunderstanding about how municipal government works. And so what is important that we do, because we're having a crisis, We didn't have a crisis a year ago. We didn't have a crisis 2 years ago. We didn't have a crisis 5 years ago in DC. Our nation has experienced a border crisis that requires a federal solution. We have to, and there's no city in America. There's a few that are bigger and can absorb more, but there's no city in America that can relieve the southern border crisis. And so that's why it's so important that we put the pressure on the Congress to fix this immigration system. So we have to have fair immigration rules. They have to be enforced, and we have to create a pathway to citizenship for the more than 11 million people who are living and working in the United States right now that don't have a secure future. I feel very strongly about that. What do we have to do? In all of our conversations, we feel like what started as a political stunt by two governors, I believe has become a way of them doing business. And the systems, even the federal systems, are supporting it. So what we have to be prepared to do in our city is what I have set up, a way to humanely address migrants who are coming to and moving through DC in a new system, a separate system that is for migrant services that does not weigh down our systems for affordable housing and our system for homeless services. And that's why I'm sending to the council an emergency piece of a legislation to do exactly that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Hall.
Thank you for the question. So I want to address that I totally disagree that this was a political stunt. The Texas governor, the Arizona governors are overwhelmed with over 4 million immigrants crossing the border. If we remember, the previous president, he put his responsibility was to protect the border and close it. And so then our sitting president comes in and signs an executive order to end that. So now we have an immigration crisis. Texas governor, Arizona governors are asking for help. DC is a sanctuary city. So these governors are asking for help because they can't even take care of their own residents. And so, yes, this is a crisis of our current leadership's own making. Recent stats say, as of Thursday, 190 buses, 7,900 immigrants came to DC. Our current leader put in place a new Office of Migrant Care in DC and also allocated $10 million of taxpayers' dollars to deal with the problem. So did we see the possible problems and ramifications of the declaration of a sanctuary city when the current president decided to let the migrants through? Okay, so that was the point of closing the border, because the past president saw the ending in the beginning when he decided to create a wall, and so that we would not see what we are experiencing in our city today. Okay, so if I was the mayor, this is what I do. First thing I do is jump on the phone. I would pick up the phone.
Time.
I would call the mayor. I would call the governor.
We're going to allow you to, in your closing remarks, continue your
Sure.
your
I would pick up the
thought.
phone.
All
I would
right.
call the.
We're going to allow you later on to finish. So make note of your thing. Okay. In our closing section on this, we are scheduled to allow you a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, but if you don't need all of them, you may yield those back to the chair. That means me. So thank you very much. Candidate Bowser, would you like to indicate in closing? You have been thrust with an awesome responsibility. The Washington Post editorial says it's yours to fix. And when they say it's yours to fix, that means it's ours to fix. So would you like to give some indication of what you would like to do? You've given some. So in your closing remarks on this section.
This is my last statement.
The last statement on this section on the question of immigration and busing. This is not your last statement.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So
It's like closing.
Okay. So I've spoken to our plan, and that plan, and I want to let me address a couple of things that were said earlier, is that the federal government has not denied us funding. And in fact, the $10 million that we will put towards our response, we will seek reimbursement from the federal government. We have demonstrated in our COVID response that we know how to account for our dollars, to expend dollars that are reimbursable, and to get those dollars back to the people of the district. Let me also emphasize that we're very focused on the provision of temporary services, because in large part, the people who are coming on those buses, what those governors don't tell you is a lot of them are getting off along the way in red states from between Texas and here, and others who are stopping here are stopping along the way to their final destination. So we will continue to make sure that we're providing a humane setting for people who come, but also an efficient way for them to get on their way. Let me also mention, talking about sanctuary cities and how that speaks to DC values. There was a lot of attention on sanctuary cities in the Trump administration because there was an attack on people who lived here. And our response as a sanctuary city is really aimed at how do we protect DC residents to make sure that the offices of the government, specifically ICE, weren't turned against them. Being a sanctuary city meant for us that children, no matter their parents' documentation status, had access to schools. What it meant is if you needed to go to the hospital, you wouldn't be turned away because you didn't have documents. So I don't want people to conflate that DC value that people have confirmed throughout election after election in DC with meaning that we said that we're going to solve the southern border crisis and what's happening in Venezuela, because the two really don't have anything to do with each other.
Thank you very much. All right. Dr. Hamilton?
Yes, yes, I would, and I thank you. And I just want to be clear, members of the community want our dear administration to understand that sanctuary city should mean that families here in the district should be able to have housing. The reality is that we've struggled for far too long to house these families. We have no accountability to them, and it's time that we do. And the reality of seeing these buses turn up and to see that you would have a process in place to house them and not our existing families is going to remain a problem. As the chief executive of this city, I will be certain that we will not only deal with this border crisis as a city that takes care of its own, but we will certainly partner with other cities to make certain that this is not an ongoing crisis. We have to have transparency, and we are a city that can take care of this matter. The money trail has proven that. It is time to be accountable and to humanely house these people and to create a stronger strategy. And it looks like we've gotten out of the gate late because, again, this has been our understanding since 2008. And so we cannot allow our local families to continue to absorb matters that have not properly been dealt with in our current administration. Thank you.
All right. Candidate Hall, you will have a moment to summarize your position on this matter.
And so if I may, I wanted to just finish my statement from earlier. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So if I was mayor or if I was mayor, yes, the first thing that I would do is pick up the phone and call Governor Greg Abbott and the governor of Arizona and tell them we need to have a conversation. And this will be short. Our status as a sanctuary city has ended. And because I have to take care of my citizens and to address what to do with the 10,000 people here. Yes, as mayor, I would go to Congress. Congress would have to help to get these people sent to their final destinations. And so to address this violence that this beautiful city has been encountering, we need to pull together. Part of the issue is that we abandon our churches. During COVID, our churches were closed. The previous president said worship is essential, but we still kept them closed. So we need our faith leaders. We need Jesus, our faith leaders. We need the police. We need the community to pull together. All right, because the churches are the backbone of our communities. And our leaders are our ministers, social workers, counselors, prayer warriors, and we need them, along with the police and the community, to pull together to address the violence, especially the violence against women and children. So rather than defund our police, DC has to hire more police to bring this violence down. So as mayor, my job is to solely bring righteous change to DC. And so I just say, be fearless DC, vote Stacia Hall for mayor.
Thank you. Well, we've had some rather lengthy and different responses. There will be an opportunity, we think, DC Women of Politics to continue at some other venue, this whole question. But we like in our final segment to move to a matter that has been discussed tangentially, and that is the question of public safety. And so we're going to move to the public safety section. And co-anchor, Dr. Martinez, would you take?
Of course. It was quite interesting to listen to our candidates talk about the situation of persons who happen to be immigrants versus just plain immigrants. So just a thought to think about. Okay, so let's keep on moving with really a very important issue that we are now confronting, not only in Washington, D.C., but also nationwide. And we're really interested in listening to what candidates have to say about public safety. So we have seen that during the first 6 months of 2020, we've seen around 221 more violent gun-involved crimes compared to the same period as last year. Also robberies. We've seen 222 more or less incidents so far this year. And we've had in the district 100 homicides a couple of months ago. The earliest the city has reached the number since 2003. So we're finding ourselves kind of insecure. We feel our women are impacted by the insecurities that we have pertaining to public safety. Our children, we might find or feel might not be safe. So the question is this: apart from increasing the number of officers, what other actions and priorities will you commit to for increasing the safety in the community, including reducing the incidence of violence toward women? And when we're talking about safety, we also have to think about what happens in the workforce. So we're also interested in workplace harassment. And we recently saw reports about workplace harassment even in the police department. So what thoughts do you have about what you will do when you are in place as a mayor? So we can start with candidate Bowser, if you can respond to the question. Oh, we can't hear you, candidate.
Mayor Bowser, yeah.
Sorry. Well, I continue to think, as it sounds like you might, Sylvia, that public safety is the #1 issue facing our city right now. I have felt that way throughout the pandemic when we saw our city, our institutions, our courts, our a lot of providers closed down, and the sense of safety was also impacted with additional crimes that have occurred throughout the city. So our focus has been a comprehensive one, and it is not one that you can address without having adequate police. So I can't answer the question in the way that you posed it, because a comprehensive strategy includes the police, and it includes having adequate number of police. It includes having police in schools. It includes, though, as well, having the alternatives that I have historically funded in the district, that are a new brand of worker called the violence interrupter, whose whole job it is to identify people who are likely to commit crimes and help try to engage them in other activities to put them on a different pathway to committing crimes. We are invested in and committed to a strategy of identifying those people who are likely to commit crimes. And when I say they're likely to, it's because they've used a gun, they've been adjudicated for using a gun, and we have identified who they are, so that we can avail them of some of our programs that helps to get them into work, or to identify other supports that their families, or their associates need. And so every year we think that number is between 200 and 500 people, and they are being identified by our ONE's office and all of the supports that go with it to try to curb their use of guns. Bottom line, however, is guns are a big difference between, I heard an earlier candidate talking about the days when I grew up in DC, when my dad was an orange hat and we had the scourge of crack on the streets. The type of violence that we're seeing is different because more people have guns, and those guns are being used for petty arguments. And that's when you're right to focus on the impact on women, because we see more women becoming victims of gun crime for the same reasons. So our intense focus on guns continues and will continue to be a part of our comprehensive strategy.
Thank you so much, candidate Bowser. Candidate Hall, could you respond to the question, please?
I sure can. I apologize. I thought that you were actually ending our question session. So some of my actual answer for that question, I've already expressed. But regarding that, let's back up and first define what violence is. So if I'm a guy and I walk up to a coworker and say, "You look nice, would you like to have a cup of coffee?" That's not violence. So we've blurred the lines on what violence is. And so to deal with violence head on, as mayor, I must set the tone for the city. All right. And so that would mean that the criminals, they need to know that this is not a city you want to come to, or if you live here, you don't want to get into trouble in this city, because this city is tough on crime. So we must do more. We must hire our police. From what I understand, we desperately need police. There's a substantial hiring bonus that's being given to the police to bring them on board, which tells me that we are in desperate need for police. We also need to create mental health crisis task force. A lot of our current criminals are younger. They're younger. And so the Attorney General has to actually address them and deal with them. A lot of them are young. They're getting out and they're repeating these crimes. So we have got to do some criminal reform there. So as the voters say, we need to get our faith leaders involved. We need to get our police and our communities to form communities within communities to address these crimes. Because part of the issue is, please don't abandon the church. We need our faith leaders. Me growing up, our faith leaders were involved in the community and they had an effect on the crime in the community. And so that's what has to happen, because
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Candidate Hall. Okay, Candidate Hamilton, your turn, please.
Thank you very much. Because let's face it, we've been a city that's been under siege with this gun violence for the better part of at least the last 4 years that I've been on the ground stomping as a mental health advocate. And one of the things I will agree with my opponent is that mental health is something that is very needed in a task force standpoint and also in an advocacy standpoint. But overall, we don't have enough coming out of our current administration to deal with the understanding of the need for more mental health comprehensive resources. We have laws on the books, but the laws are not being enforced. And the concern is that we have trouble in this town, in this administration, with transparency and with accountability. We have to be sure that the statistical data coming from our police department and this administration are accurate. We have to make certain that folks that have been charged before are not finding themselves with guns in their hands again. We have to be sure that we have comprehensive plans as opposed to just holding press conferences that would go after the straw buyers and the folks that are not getting background checks, because the Second Amendment does support the ability to bear arms. We have to have a mayor that is willing to be transparent and that is willing to go at the heart of the problem, as opposed to continuing to do the same thing, which is what has the community frustrated. We continue to be told that we're living under a state of emergency, and we do not see the comprehensive level of mental health resources that are needed to be able to address this totality of a problem. And we must have task force to go after the dealers and the sellers that are bringing straw guns, straw man bought guns, and the understanding of no background checks at these trade shows into our city and selling these guns to our citizens. Our citizens want change. 4 more years of the same is just not acceptable, is what they've shared with me. We must have a mayor that will run on transparent and accountable means, and that is absolutely why I'm in this race. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Candidate Hamilton. Now it's time for everybody to express themselves, and it's your final moment to speak about your candidacy, your campaign, and why should people support you. So why don't we start with Candidate Hamilton?
Yes, and thank you again to the women of politics, as well as Ms. Shelton and Ms. Martinez. You've done a wonderful job, and I'm honored to have been on the platform. We must have a mayor and an administration that's going to be accountable to the DC resident. For the better part of 5 years, I've been calling on matters at DCRA for calling them out for lack of transparency, calling on the Office of Attorney General for lack of transparency, calling on the slumlord realities that exist in this town for lack of transparency. I have spearheaded non-501c nonprofit that intends to bring forward a standalone trauma and wellness center in Ward 8, where our health inequities are so poor. We've got work to do in our city, and more of the same is what DC citizens say they do not want. I am Rhonda Hamilton, and I'm asking you on November 8th to write me in so that we can begin to fix the problems of our dear city. Together, we are stronger. More of the same is not necessary. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Candidate Hamilton. Is Candidate Bowser still here or not?
Mayor Bowser had to sign off. She said to thank everybody for your time. She had to sign off, and she's asking for your vote on November 8th.
Okay, thank you so much, Lorraine. Okay, Candidate Hall, your turn. And we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Oh my goodness, sorry about that. All right, I got it. So again, thank you for allowing me to speak before you today. I have learned a lot, and I had a very good time hearing from every candidate that is running for office. It is a pleasure to fellowship with women, especially women that love and have compassion for others. And so that's where I'm sure we have in common the love for our neighbors. So praise God for that. And I just wanted to also add, I am a single mom. My daughter, she attends Jackson Reed. She's a senior this year, and she did suffer from the COVID shutdown. It did have it had an effect on her. And so she struggled for a while in school, and she attends a school of great teachers, educators, staff that support and back those children to be all that they can be, and to explore and to figure out what they want to do with their lives, whether they don't want to go to college, they want to enter the workforce right after 12th grade, or they want to enter college. And then they, like my daughter, wants to go into the Air Force after college. So this is some of the good things that I'm seeing right now after she went through her ordeal. And so as a mother, I want to see children prosper. It doesn't matter to me of what ward they're living in. Children are affected across the board. Children are dealing with a lot of psychological and a lot of peer pressure issues. So I'm going to be a big fat advocate for children. And so I just ask that you look me up, staciahall.com. I ask you to be fearless, DC. No matter what the outcome is, I'm going to be a thorn in the flesh to whoever wins if I don't win. So I want you to get ready, because I'm going to be calling up your phone, and I'm going to be at your doorstep, making sure that you take care of these children and these senior citizens, and don't be having no abandoned animals on the street either. So therefore, that's it for me for now. I just say be fearless, DC. Vote November 8th, Stacia Hall for DC mayor. Be blessed.
Thank you so much, Candidate Hall. Thank you so much. Anita, what do you think?
Oh, wow, 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 wow. I tell you, we really have some great ideas and some great talent. And so we know that you have marked your card, and you may be delightfully surprised to know that we had two persons that we did not know a lot about, but learned a great deal about for this time. And of course, we have our current mayor to share with her the perils and the opportunities that exist in the chief operating officer. So we are now ready to talk about what's next, the whole question of the preference poll. And you know that one of the things that we are going to do is to indicate of the candidates that you have received, have seen and know about, and you can find out more about them in your by going through their pages to learn more, but you've really seen a great deal. So you can vote for the candidate of your choice by using the preference poll. It's my understanding that what you do is go to DC, www.dc, DC Women in Politics and press, and then you can have an opportunity to vote. The vote is tonight, and the vote will end on Friday. We want you to make sure you understand that only DC voters, registered voters, can vote, and we are depending, of course, on the honor system. We want you to make sure you understand that men can vote, as well as anyone over the age of 18. So we look forward to it. We want to thank you very much for being a great audience and to be able to share with this opportunity. While we say that when women vote, women win. And DC Women in Politics, through your preference poll, have had an outstanding record, outstandanding record. Those who win our poll usually go on to win the election. So we thank you. Our women's majority is in peril. And so we need to make sure that we continue to put women, not just because they're women, but because they're the best that DC can offer. Thank you very much for your opportunity. Lorraine and Dr. Nortez, did we miss anything to say in closing?
I just want to say that there's a wonderful team behind us, and including the wonderful Lorraine, who did a lot of work behind
Yes.
all this, not only prior, but just during. She does the computers, all kinds of computer stuff. So we really want to say thanks to Lorraine, as well as all the other members who during these months have also given us some ideas of what type of questions they wanted to hear us ask the candidates.
Right, and of course, please, we want to continue to honor Lorraine for what she has done. But she would be upset with me if I didn't put in a personal appeal. This, of course, is an appeal for membership and support. And we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate in the, as they say in the church, the opportunity to give. And so we want you to also join DC Women in Politics. And if you feel like you don't want to join, then you can make a contribution to the organization and to the cause that we espouse. So we're hoping that you will continue. We've had a good year in terms of membership support, but as you know, even advocacy is costly. Thank you very much. Good night, good evening.
Good night.
And when women vote, women win.
Good night.
Yeah.
God bless you,
Good night,
beautiful.
everyone.